Welcome to Town Talk on News Talk 1230 WFVA. Brought to you by EV Mobility, here to keep you moving. For daily life, travel, or just having fun, visit GoEVMobility.com. Over the next hour, you'll be introduced to business and local leaders impacting our community. Text your comments or questions directly to the studio at 540-371-5756 or comment on Facebook at WFVA 1230. Now, the host of Town Talk, Ted Schubel.
Legal Aid Works is here this morning. Ann Klockner is back with us, the Executive Director of Legal Aid Works, and she has brought a housing navigator that we're going to introduce you to in just a second. And good morning. It's great to have you here.
It's great to be here, Ted. Thank you.
There's a lot going on, and throughout this whole pandemic, really early on, we've talked housing a lot, and so that's why to actually have a housing navigator in studio to talk with us is going to be great, because we are hearing a lot about evictions and things starting to run out. And you're here today, you and your guest, to talk about that there's hope.
Absolutely. There's always going to be something that we can do in the midst of a crisis, and we are super thrilled that we have the opportunity to have a new staff member to help us with that. The eviction moratorium that the CDC issued in September was never really a moratorium. Plenty of evictions have been going on. Even in the height of the pandemic, I think I saw the highest per day eviction docket was about 90 evictions. Mm-hmm. So that's not really a moratorium, is it? And
yet you see all kinds of stories, and every time I see those stories, I think of what you've told us on that.
You bet. So that can prevent an eviction if the person fit a certain set of criteria, and if the landlord got their declaration, if the judge followed all of the guidelines, all of that. There's a lot of ifs along the way. And if people didn't know about the eviction moratorium or how it worked, they were certainly subject to being evicted. And so that expired on Saturday. And so now there are several other things that people can do, and one of those is to apply for rent relief. So if you are being evicted for non-payment of rent, it's super important that you know about what the housing navigator at our office does and how they can help. And
we have that housing navigator right here. Rose Martinez is here. Rose, it's great to meet you this morning.
Great
Good morning.
To meet you too. Good morning.
So, first of all, how did you've just been hired to be the housing navigator?
Yeah, so my position is pretty new. Started around June and July, so I've been trying to get out there basically to kind of help out with raising awareness about the Virginia Rent Relief Program.
Well, let's talk about that in what exactly you do.
Right. So part of my role, I would say, is two things. I provide outreach to the disadvantaged communities in Fredericksburg. So that can include, low English proficiency, low income, people of color, and those who don't have internet. You do need internet to complete this application. Another thing that I do is actually assist those with completing the actual application. So I could kind of navigate the application with you, and then we could submit it if you have all the proper documents. So it's pretty exciting.
Well, it is, and I would think for so many people, you really provide hope.
Right. Yeah, it's exciting to, I was doing door-to-door outreach, and to see someone like, oh my gosh, I didn't know about this program at all.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for, letting me know about it, and I do need help, and that it's kind of great to see that I can actually help people, get back on track with their rent.
So how do people get in touch with you?
So my phone number is going to be 540-371-1105, and then my extension is 128.
Okay, it's just as easy as that, and I guess you can walk people through things.
And I'll walk it through the application with you. I'll let you know the eligibility requirements and what documents you would need to actually complete the application.
And so this is for both people. This is both tenants and landlords?
Right. So tenants can apply, or the landlords can apply on their behalf. So if you if you're a landlord and you have a tenant who's back in rent, you could apply for them. If you're a tenant and you're back in rent, you can go ahead and apply, and your landlord will be sent an email, and then he or she will just go ahead and have to submit certain documents to the application to complete it.
Boy, Rose, the one thing that strikes me is we hear all these, like Ann had said, all these deadlines and things are ending and this and that, but we don't hear a lot about things that with what you're doing and the funding that's out there.
Yeah, it's out here. A lot of people don't know about it. So yeah, that's part of my role, is to let people know about it and do that outreach, so it can reach as many people as who needs it here in this area, in the Fredericksburg area.
Have you been pretty busy?
I've been starting to get more busy. I'm hoping to get even more busy. My goal is to do as many applications with those who need it as possible. So I am available Mondays, the whole day, whole week and weekend. Call me, please. I'm available to help you. Anytime we could set up an appointment, I could walk through the application with you, or even just talk to you about what you would need to do the application itself.
And you do house calls, don't you?
Yes, and we can meet at your house. We can meet wherever you're comfortable to meet, at a library or McDonald's, if whatever you guys feel safe or comfortable with meeting at. I can meet you there. Bring my laptop. I'll have my hotspot with me, so you don't have to have internet. 'Cause, you do need Wi-Fi to do the application. I'll bring everything I need to actually, complete the application with you. Even my scanner, because we have to scan in documents. Yeah, I'll bring all that stuff.
Boy, you got everything.
Yeah, I have everything I need.
You are just you're literally an office that can travel around.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
And in this situation, I guess it's really necessary to be able to meet people where they're at.
It is, especially the people we are trying to reach. It is important to meet them where they're at. Yeah.
And it's in a lot of cases, it's not just a 9 to 5 kind of thing.
No, it's not.
You have to work around people's schedules.
Work around their schedules. Try to find local events. In churches and pantries, they don't do that 9 to 5. It could be at 6 or 7 p.m. on a weekday or even the weekend. I'm willing to go out there and help people and kind of raise, again, awareness about this program.
Wow, it seems when you talk about, really heroes of the pandemic, this is one of them.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying. This position is very new, but I'm glad to have heard about it and to be a part of it. It's really exciting, and I'm, just want to help those who are in need of this. I really do.
Boy, and this is, I know, something when we talked a few months ago just about you getting the funding for this, you were pretty excited. Now you kind of see it. We kind of see the boots on the ground kind of thing, and it's what you envisioned, I think.
We're so lucky to have Rose. She's bilingual. We're trying to hire 2 more bilingual housing navigators, one for our Culpeper region and one for our Tappahannock region. So if anyone thinks that they'd be interested in this kind of a position, they should definitely give me a call and let me know that they're interested. It would have to be somebody who's willing to travel in the Culpeper region or in the Tappahannock region. And we really want to make sure that they're bilingual so they can help as many people as possible. Yeah.
Again, to get in touch with Rose, the Housing Navigator, 540-371-1105, extension 128. 371-1105, extension 128. More coming up. Rose Martinez here and Klockner here. Legal Aid Works. More on News Talk 1230 WFVA.
This is Town Talk on News Talk 1230 WFVA. Brought to you by EV Mobility. Here to keep you moving. For daily life, travel, or just having fun, visit GoEVMobility.com. Miss an episode of Town Talk? No problem. Just subscribe to the Town Talk podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. Now, the host of Town Talk, Ted Schubel.
Wait, good stuff this morning with Rose Martinez. She's the Housing Navigator, and Klockner here with Legal Aid Works. Rose, you talked in the last segment, and it caught my attention that you talked about one of the ways you are going about getting the word out is going door to door. Right. Talk to me about that.
So the door-to-door, it makes sense. You're reaching renters, you're going to different apartments, and you're talking to those that live there about this program. So it's been an experience, but I realized that is one of the best ways to perform outreach is to go to the people who may be in need of this program. So the door-to-door experiences have been really exciting, having conversations with those who actually open the door, and then letting them know about this program and them having no idea about it. And just spreading that awareness has been very important. I've talked to people who are back in rent. They owe in rent, but they had no idea that this existed. Mm-hmm. So to be able to spread that awareness and give them a flyer and talk to them about the requirements and whatnot that goes with it has been, really kind of, it just feels good to help people in that sense, and to raise awareness about this program, because they are in need of it and they didn't have any idea that existed. So that's actually how I got to complete certain applications, was by doing that door-to-door, letting them know, what this is, and they're like, I do need this. Can you help me with this? I'm like, yes, I can. So the door-to-door, I realized it's very important to do.
Did you encounter anybody that you knew?
Oh, yes. And it's funny because I was not expecting to, being new to the Fredericksburg area, not knowing much about it, not expecting to see anyone, who I knew, let alone, I guess, a colleague. I do the door-to-door. I knock on someone's door and I introduce myself. I said I'm Rose Martinez from Legal Aid Works, going around your area to kind of raise awareness about the Virginia Rent Relief Program. And then someone stopped me and is like, where are you from? I'm like, Legal Aid Works. And they say, we work together. And I'm like, what? So, I actually met a colleague who I've never seen before. I stopped at her door and let her know about the program. And it was funny.
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah, I was not expecting to, see.
But really to get the word out, I guess is uncomfortable sometimes as that kind of thing is. Mm-hmm. That's the way you do it.
It is the way to do it. It's been, I think, a big part of what I do. I think I'm going to continue doing that door-to-door and hopefully continue to reach more people that way.
Well, and I guess another way, as you think about ways, there are other, I guess, groups could pass out information like this too, like churches and all. Right.
So another part, I'm trying to reach pantries and churches and look at local events in Fredericksburg to kind of raise awareness, about the program. So if, anyone knows of any churches or pantries who, would be open to me going over there and kind of speaking about the program and, handing out flyers, that'd be great.
Now, this is, again, it's just the whole Virginia Rent Relief Program is there to help people, and getting the word out is, I guess, it just does take a lot of just, kind of labor-intensive kind of things just to get to be able to do what you do. Right. You have to, not be comfortable basically with doing that door-to-door, be comfortable with giving those calls continuously, because if someone's not answering, you're going to call again and leave another voicemail, because you realize it is important to just, let people know that this is available, because there are people who are in need of it. So that's been very important, is to not be afraid to do that outreach. The whole rent application, or the whole process, the application process, is it does it take much time? It may for certain. That's why part of why my position was made. They did not. Some people may not be considered user friendly, in the sense of it's not so easy to just walk through it and upload the documents that you may need onto the actual application. So that's why I come in and kind of help them navigate through it. Some may find that they could do it themselves, and then some may not. And again, those who don't have internet can't do it. Yeah. On your phone is pretty hard. I heard that you can't really do it on your phone either. So having a laptop, with internet is very important. And then, those who may not speak English, it's only in English. So I could kind of help translate the application for them so we can complete that as well. So it may be easy to some, and to others it may not be so easy. So that's why I'm here to kind of help them navigate through it. I would imagine that at the end of some days, you've got to have a really great feeling for just being able to help people. Yeah, and even if I spend my whole day doing that door to door, I see faces, I
let them know what's going on. And if I don't get any number that day, that's totally fine. But even then, I get people like, no, I don't need this, but I'll, tell people about it and I'll take a flyer. And that's helpful as well, just getting the word out there.
Wow, Ann, this is, you talk about a program that is giving people hope. And the challenge, like Rose said, is just to get the word out now.
And I think that it's been a challenge for all 50 states. We've heard that some states who've gotten this money, so where did this money come from? It came from the federal government, from one of the big pandemic relief bills that were passed. So there's billions of dollars that have come to the states to say, this should go to the landlords. This should make sure that people can stay housed and be safe in the midst of the pandemic, so that we don't crowd the shelters, so that we don't crowd your relatives' homes, so that the pandemic can stop, because we won't have people living in close quarters and spreading the disease. So that was what they set up all that money for. And there are billions of dollars that are coming to the states. Some states haven't even set up their programs yet. Others have set it up, but they're struggling. Virginia has done a pretty good job because they hit the ground running. I know that you remember from earlier in the pandemic when United Way was the local hub for this.
Right.
They have since made it a statewide portal, so it's not up to an individual organization in your community to accept the applications. You can do it online on your own, but it's been a little difficult to navigate, which is why we call them the navigators. So they came up with an idea that they were going to spend some of those billions of dollars to fund navigators in each of the legal aid offices all over Virginia. And so people could access this money. It's 18 months of back rent starting from April of 2020, which is just amazing, including up to 3 months in advance. Whoever pays their rent in advance, right?
Yeah.
You just pay the month that you can, right, going forward. So Rose is able to help people access that. If you are behind in rent, there are certain criteria you have to qualify for, and she can walk through a few of those kind of preliminary requirements. And once you're eligible, that can be accessed, given to your landlord, save the day, the landlord is made whole, and the tenant stays where they are and protected and not having to go into cramped quarters with somebody else.
Wow. Wow. If you give me that information, and if I'm really up against it, Rose, I'm going to want to hug you.
Yeah.
That's just...
Right. It's been exciting to see people. Even, like she mentioned, the 3 months in advance. People are like, what? I could get up to 3 months in advance. So you're getting back on track, plus even more so, I think, with that 3 months in advance. So that's really exciting to tell people.
What are some of the criteria? If I say to you, I was laid off shortly after the pandemic began, and I don't know what I'm going to do, and what are some of the criteria?
Right. So some of them include, so you have to have a valid lease. So that's one of the ones, and then your rent your rent amount has to be at or below the 150% at fair market. And then you have to have a gross household income of below 80% of the area median income. And then experience that financial hardship due to COVID. So that could be being laid off or less hours,
Taking care of your kids because there's no daycare anymore.
Yeah.
So it can include many things like that. And, to look at the percentages, like the fair market rent and the 80% of the area median income, you can look it up on the website to see if you're eligible for it. So what I found is some people just Google Virginia Rent Relief Program, and you should see the website pop up. And you could click on that and go through the eligibility requirements for you as well there.
Well, so many of us, when you get a knock on the door, you think it's a telemarketer. This is something you want to answer the door if you're coming door to door.
Right. I've heard people, I knock on the door, and I've heard people say, kids even, Mom, there's a nurse out there. What's that? And the mom opens up, she's like, and then I speak to her, and she was like, boy, that was no nurse. And she had the kid there, and I was having a conversation with both of them about this. And the mom actually was like, I do need this. I am a single mother. I was laid off, and thank you so much for, giving me this information. I gave her my contact information, and she did reach out to me, and that was one of the applications I actually completed. So with the mom, so that was kind of great to, experience.
Now, any of those kind of things that you think, I mean, in a lot of ways, there's not enough hours in the day for you to be able to go and do, I'm sure, what you want to do.
Right. There's a lot that I want to do, and just getting familiar with the Fredericksburg area and also the local events, just kind of keeping up to date. Realize that's important because not from the area, don't know much about Fredericksburg and what's going on. So, Facebook, looking at Facebook, Googling things around the area, Googling apartment buildings around the area. It's something that I've had to do to, actually be out there and put in the work to help people.
You think of it, in some ways, it's almost like when the vaccine came out, giving the vaccine and you realize how many people there are. In your case, it's just going from apartment complex to apartment complex.
It is. Yep. That's
and
where
there's a lot of them.
Yeah, there is a lot of them. There's more than I thought that I was just not thinking because I'm like, oh, Fredericksburg, moving in here, I'm like, it's a smaller area, I think. I don't. Who am I? Hopefully I can reach a certain amount of people, but I'm like, there's a lot of people to reach here. There really is, and I'm excited to continue going to door to door and to apartment complex. A lot of people have been telling me of other apartment complex, so that's been helpful. Just kind of I'm also gaining knowledge in that sense about the area and where to go to. That's been exciting too.
540-371-1105, extension 128 for Rose Martinez, the housing navigator with Legal Aid Works. 540-371-1105, extension 128. More to talk about. We will continue along this morning with Rose Martinez and Ann Klockner with Legal Aid Works. LegalAidWorks.org to jump onto the Legal Aid Works site and see all the good work they do. More on News Talk 1230 WFVA. It's 8:30.
I had the radio on. I'm listening to
Talk done right. News Talk 1230 WFVA Fredericksburg, a Centennial Broadcasting station. Welcome back to Town Talk on News Talk 1230 WFVA. Brought to you by EV Mobility, here to keep you moving. For daily life, travel, or just having fun, visit GoEVMobility.com. You can weigh in about today's Town Talk topic on Facebook at WFVA 1230. Now, your host, Ted Schubert.
A lot of great information this morning. Legal Aid Works here, and Klockner is the executive director. Rose Martinez, the housing navigator, and some really, really good stuff about the Virginia Rent Relief Program and all the good things that Rose does, and we will talk about that again in just a second. But Ann, we talk about the rent and protection. We've talked about that all along, but there are a lot of other things out there that are helpful to people.
I think it would be useful for everyone to know about the rent relief program. That's terrific, and I'm really glad Rose is our spokesperson about that. We also have still one other protection that Virginia gave to renters back last April, over a year ago, and that is that you can ask for a 60-day delay in your eviction hearing. If you get a notice, a summons that says you have to show up to court for an eviction,
okay,
you can show up to that first hearing, they call it the first return date, and ask for a 60-day delay to give you time to come up with the money or to come up with a way of moving out or, whatever, just giving you 60 days. And that sometimes can be really helpful for the rent relief program to give a little bit of time for the application to go through and get the money to the landlord. That 60-day delay opportunity expires on September 28th, unless they renew it, because they tied it to the state of emergency. And when the state of emergency ended, they had a number of days after that it would still be in effect. So that's going to be ending at the end of September 28th. But right up until then, if you have a court date for eviction, you show up on that first court date, you have some kind of written proof that you have lost income due to COVID, like an email from your boss saying you've been laid off, showing different pay stubs that show that you've lost income, anything like that, then they have to give you a 60-day delay. And again, it doesn't make the eviction go away. It doesn't make the money you owe go away. It just gives you time and breathing room. Another new law that just took effect July 1st is to deal with a problem that we've seen for many years, but now more increasingly during the pandemic, and that is unlawful exclusions. So what that means is a landlord will just decide to kick you out, doesn't follow the procedures, doesn't take you to court, doesn't follow all the legal requirements, just changes the locks or cuts off your utilities. Mm-hmm. That's called an unlawful exclusion because you're being excluded unlawfully from where you are renting. So it used to be that you could file a complaint against the landlord, but it would take a really long time. There were all kinds of hoops to jump through. And even if you got the judge to say, yeah, they shouldn't have kicked you out like that, there was no real teeth in the law. There was no penalty, so landlords just kept on doing it. So now there's a new law as of July 1st that says that you have to have a hearing on that matter within 5 days. So they're treating it like the emergency that it is, because if you've been excluded, you're basically homeless. Mm-hmm. And they put a little teeth in it because they now have $5,000 automatic statutory damages. So that means that the landlord has to pay the tenant $5,000 if the judge finds that they've unlawfully excluded them. So we're really hoping that that's going to cut down on the unlawful exclusions and the landlords taking it on their own to do things that the court really needs to be doing. And there's also a utility shutoff moratorium that has been in place, that the utilities in Virginia have agreed not to cut people off if they're having trouble making their bills, paying their utility bills. That moratorium ends at the end of this month. It ends on August 29th. That's a Sunday. So what we're telling folks who are having trouble paying their utility bills, between now and the end of August, they really need to make a payment plan with their utility that they can make sure that they can pay. So you have to have whatever it is that you're paying by month and then add on a little bit toward the back payment. And make that arrangement with the utilities before the end of August so that when they get to that moratorium ending, they will not shut you off because they have a payment plan in place with you. Yeah. And then make sure you keep that payment plan up. So those are the things I most want people to know about. We have, in Virginia, we just got the figures from the U.S. Census Bureau, 34.6% of Virginians, so that's a big percentage of Virginians, are at risk of eviction in the next 2 months. So that's 34.6% of our neighbors are facing the possibility of an eviction in the next 2 months. So we really want to make sure that as many people as possible know about these protections, know about the rent relief program, know about the 60-day delay that they can ask for. We also want to make sure that landlords know about this. We're here mostly for the tenants because they're the folks who are eligible for our services as low-income folks. If landlords want to know more information and get help themselves on applying for the rent relief, they can go to homeofva.org. So that's HOMEOFVA.org. It's an organization in Richmond that has gotten some grant money. The same grant money that's being used to pay for navigators is also being used to pay for people who can help landlords navigate this portal as well. So they can go to homeofva.org and get lots of information about how it's a very simple process for the landlords because they have all the information about the rental, about the lease that needs to be put into the portal.
You've also, along the way, always talked about the Virginia Poverty Law Center and what they offer.
They are amazing. So the Virginia Poverty Law Center is a real clearinghouse of very recent, good information. And so you can go to their website for more information on very current Know Your Rights brochures. They have an entire toolkit of how a person as a tenant can file a complaint about an unlawful exclusion, just what I was talking about before with that $5,000 statutory damages. And the best way to reach them is through their website, which is vplc.org, Virginia Poverty Law Center. So that's vplc.org. They also have an eviction hotline where you can get some quick answers to your legal questions about your rights as a tenant, and that is 833-NO-EVICT. So that's 833-NO-EVICT, and that's operated through the Virginia Poverty Law Center.
There are some helps out there and some information. I mean, a lot of times I think you would feel just really hopeless. But there really are some things you can do. And one of the things, Ann, you have talked about from the very first time, that when you start getting into a jam on any of these kind of things, work with people. Don't just try to run away from it.
Well, I think most of us, when we encounter something we've never dealt with before, there is the tendency to just be paralyzed.
Yeah.
To not have a sense of that I could do something, that I'm empowered, that I have some rights. I've seen a lot of people just shutting down because they're overwhelmed. I think we're all very overwhelmed by all this new pandemic behavior that we're having to encounter. So I think one of the things that you hope for is that it'll just go away. It will just disappear. It won't have any real consequences. Mm-hmm. But when you do that, you're just making it worse when you aren't just dealing with it directly, saying, here's my budget. What can I afford? How can I manage this? What other options do I have? Is there any relief out there for me? And the more information you get, the more unstuck you will be, and the less paralyzed you can be. I have found that when I get paralyzed like that, it's helpful to me to know where are the places that I can go for information. What should I be looking for? So knowing something like the legalaidworks.org website, the vplc.org website, all of those are designed to give people lots of information.
I've said it over and over, and I mean, we're lucky to have Legal Aid Works here. I mean, you've just over and over again, we see it, and we have certainly seen it during the pandemic.
I would prefer that there not be a pandemic.
Yeah.
But during a crisis like this, a legal aid organization is like a first responder. We can really jump in and help people who are facing things like evictions and foreclosures. Mm-hmm. We haven't even talked about foreclosures, but that's the next tsunami that's about to crest, is people who haven't been able to keep up with their mortgages.
Yeah.
And there's going to be lots of difficulties like that in the next few months. We'll talk about that maybe at another program, but it's super important for people to communicate with their lenders, to make payment arrangements in advance, or find out what other programs are available for relief when you're facing a foreclosure, as well as all of the stuff that we've just talked about, which is for renters.
Yeah, boy, and you've been great also in kind of laying out when you do get in a situation of not knowing you've got just such a finite amount of money, and how to break that down, and what you want to make sure you're making some payments on.
Sure, and I think that on any given day you have to make choices about where your scarce resources get spent.
Yeah.
And I always tell people the top of the list of every single bill you pay has to be rent. And why is that? Because I like landlords, because I think landlords need to get money. Well, that's probably true. But it's because that's the one bill that if you don't pay it, all the other bills don't matter.
Yeah.
Because you're out on the street. And then your cable bill doesn't matter. And then your credit card bill doesn't matter. And then a lot of other bills that you're paying don't matter if you aren't focusing on making sure that you can get the rent paid. all the rest of the stuff is not going to work. You can go to a pantry to get food. You can do other things, but there's so many ways in which if you don't pay your rent, the consequences are pretty devastating. So if you have to make a tough choice, I would like you to pay all your bills on time, all the time. That would be great. But if you are facing a tough choice about what to pay first, make sure you and your family are housed, because everything else gets easier when you are housed, as opposed to solving all the other problems that you have while you're living under a bridge somewhere. That just isn't the way for you to be able to solve the rest of your problems.
Ann Klockner is Executive Director with Legal Aid Works. Rose Martinez here, she is the housing navigator. And I am sure, Rose, that you run into all the time as you talk to people and go door to door of people in the situation or know of people in the situation, and they don't know any way out. Mm-hmm. And there are ways out, as Ann has just gone through it, but that's a lot of that information is just still not widely available.
Right. It's out there. A lot of people don't know about it. That's part of the reason why I'm here as well. I keep also information of what Legal Aid Works gives me, and also try to let people know about the other resources that are out there as well. Other than the Virginia Rent Relief Program, it's all about kind of letting people know that these resources are out there. That's part of our jobs.
No, it is. It can be just such a. It's such a terrifying time, but it doesn't have to be if you know some of this information.
Right, exactly. It's like what it's called, the Rent Relief Program, Virginia Rent. It's a relief. There are people who are struggling and wondering, what am I going to do? My family's going to be out in the streets, or, we're going to be evicted. They don't know the process of it. All these things run through your head. And then when someone knocks on your door, is like, hey, there's this program available, this Virginia Rent Relief Program available that can help you out. I'm sure it's definitely a relief. And then to get paid, to keep up with your rent is hard in general, and with this pandemic, it's just been kind of ridiculous for people. So I'm glad that this has been put in place, and I'm glad that I'm going out there and letting people know about it, because it is very scary for people and families.
If you want to get a hold of Rose and find out more about the Virginia Rent Relief Program, you can reach her at 540-371-1105, extension 128. 540-371-1105. extension 128. Also, her email address is rmartinez@legalaidworks.org. And Legal Aid Works, great website and great information available at legalaidworks.org. Rose Martinez and Klockner here. Quick break. We'll wrap it up on News Talk 1230 WFVA.
Opinions, we've all got them, and we'd like to hear yours on Town Talk. Brought to you by EV Mobility, here to keep you moving. For daily life, travel, or just having fun, visit GoEVMobility.com. Text the studio now at 540-371-5756. Here's the host of Town Talk, Ted Schubel.
Legal Aid Works here, and Klockner is Executive Director. Rose Martinez, the Housing Navigator. Before we get out of here, Rose, as far as when you are working with people, what kind of documents do they need to do to help you fill out the forms?
Right, so there are a few required documents to actually complete the application. One of them is proof of income. So that could be pay stubs, bank statements, a letter from an employer, or Social Security documents, pension even, just something that, kind of proves how much you're making. And it really does depend also on your zip code. But that's something that also I can run through with people as well. You also have to have, like I mentioned earlier, a valid lease or other documentation of landlord-tenant relationship. That's a very big one that we would need to upload onto the application. And then there are 3 documents that the landlord would have to go ahead and upload onto the application. One is the rent ledger. That's something the landlord would provide and go ahead and upload. And then a Virginia W-9. And then a completed application and agreement. So that's the tenant and landlord signing an agreement, just kind of, them kind of stating they're aware of what's going on, and the application is being completed and submitted. And also Legal Aid Works would have to obtain a release form as well to kind of complete the application if I work with you. Help you with it anyways.
So there are a few things that you have to make sure you've got available to be able to qualify.
Exactly. Those are very needed to go ahead and actually have a complete application and to go ahead and get that rent paid off. But if anyone has questions or needs to know if they have the right documents, they can definitely give me a call and I can run through that with them as well.
And this is quite a program, as we've talked about. This is the Virginia Rent Relief Program offers a wide variety of things, and if you qualify, you can be helped.
Yes, you definitely can be helped, and even in advance. So that's another great thing. You can get paid up to 3 months in advance, which is another relief, I'm sure, for most families out there if they are struggling. Those 3 months that you kind of either, I wouldn't say worry about, but kind of, get a plan together, and kind of figure out what's your situation and what else you may need to do moving forward.
And I guess the word here today is there's hope. There's hope for you, whether you're if you're up against it, and to seek out these things.
It's really important to know your rights and know what is available. The more you know, the more you can plan, you can predict things, you can figure out what your next steps are and get out of being stuck and paralyzed and thinking, oh, I'm in a terrible situation. At the very least, you know what your rights are and know what your options are. That's so important.
LegalAidWorks.org, the website for Legal Aid Works. Also, the Virginia Poverty Law Center is vplc.org, and they have lots of good information. And if you want to get a hold of Rose, you can call her at 540-371-1105, extension 128. Or I guess if you can't remember all that, just contact Legal Aid Works and say, I want to talk to Rose. I heard her on the radio this morning. And boy, Rose, you are really working in all